Do you know what might be buried beneath the bright lights and platinum records of the biggest names in hip-hop? It turns out that when the spotlight isn't shining, the truth can be darker, stranger, and more explosive than anyone imagined. Recent leaks suggest Drake, one of rap's most celebrated figures, may have been operating in secret to undermine a fellow heavyweight, Kendrick Lamar. And if these rumors are true, everything we thought we knew about Drake's carefully crafted image could collapse before our eyes. From leaked DMs that reveal plots and manipulation, to unsettling glimpses of the rapper's private behavior, the revelations might threaten to upend his legacy. By the end of this story, you'll be questioning whether we've only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Drake's alleged behind-the-scenes strategies. For a while, whispers of tension between Drake and Kendrick Lamar lingered in the hip-hop community. Sure, they've thrown subtle jabs and verses, occasionally teased disses that kept fans guessing, and even had rumored ghostwriting disputes. But there was always the sense that something more was simmering beneath the surface, something beyond a simple rivalry for chart dominance. The biggest question was always, is there actual bad blood? Well, people began saying the Kendrick thief fiasco was born from Drake's intense desire to reclaim the throne, especially after being overshadowed by Kendrick's lyrical prowess and game-changing releases. According to emerging rumors, Drake and his inner circle allegedly crafted an entire strategy to discredit Kendrick at every turn. They'd fuel controversies online, quietly prod big-name outlets to run headlines that skewed public opinion, and spin even the smallest tidbit of gossip into something monstrous. None of it was confirmed, until now if the recent leaked messages prove legitimate. Those DMs allegedly showing direct exchanges between Drake and certain media personalities have started a firestorm on social media. Some say these leaks could threaten Drake's entire empire. At first, most fans dismissed them as fabrications. But as more screenshots surfaced, and as certain insiders started hinting they were legitimate, skepticism morphed into shock. If you look at these so-called messages, you see a different Drake emerge. Frustrated, vindictive, and determined to tear down Kendrick Lamar's reputation at any cost. The tone is jarring, not at all like the smooth, easygoing persona so many have come to love. Instead, there's an urgency to push damaging stories, fabricate or exaggerate rumors, and systematically turn the public against Kendrick. And that's not even the most troubling part. Several lines read like undisguised admissions that Drake had lied about certain claims in their lyrical back and forth. If that's true, it would mean some of his biggest flexes, like the insinuation that he set Kendrick up, or that he was always the one in control, were built on a flimsy foundation of half-truths and total fabrications. What makes this entire ordeal even more unsettling is how these messages suggest that Drake allegedly partnered with certain online figures to bolster his image. You might have noticed particular social media accounts always praising Drake to the skies while repeatedly dragging Kendrick. These accounts sometimes posted exclusive info that painted Drake as a misunderstood hero and Kendrick as a manipulator controlling the narrative. Now we're seeing talk that these accounts might have been in direct contact with Drake all along, orchestrating smear campaigns. One user in the leaked exchanges apparently goes by a name so off-color, it can't even be repeated on a family-friendly platform. And from the look of these messages, Drake not only approved the negativity toward Kendrick, he actively encouraged it. The alleged transcripts point to Drake openly discussing how best to spin controversies, which angles would resonate most with fans, and how to keep pushing ideas that Kendrick is paying off industry elites to secure his success. Ironically, in the same breath, Drake seems to rely on his own set of arrangements to make sure certain platforms avoid criticizing him too harshly. Those who've seen the DMs up close say the level of hypocrisy is jaw-dropping. In public, Drake might have implied that Kendrick's success was propped up by big names and a rigged system. But behind closed doors, these messages apparently reveal that Drake himself was leaning on paid partnerships, orchestrated rumor mills, and media alliances to stay on top. There's one particular conversation that stands out, a moment where Drake seems to gloat over certain platforms, refusing to say anything negative about him, no matter what. He and his contact allegedly congratulate each other on pulling a few strings, and ensuring any mention of Kendrick's achievements gets overshadowed by doubts about how legitimate those achievements truly are. If all of this is genuine, it's a masterclass in projecting onto Kendrick exactly what Drake might have been doing in private. Then there's the strangest, most alarming slice of these leaked DMs, often referred to online as the LOL scenario. In that snippet, Drake is allegedly joking with someone about a situation so off-putting, it makes people cringe just reading it. The conversation hints that Drake was either witnessing or directly involved in something borderline unacceptable, and that instead of treating it with the weight it deserves, he brushed it off with an LOL. It's unclear whether this was about a party, a personal encounter, or something else. Regardless, the flippant attitude is what truly got under many fans' skin. For an artist who's prided himself on emotional authenticity and moral high ground, responding to that kind of scenario with laughter reveals a disconnect that's hard to ignore. And with the leaked source claiming this moment took place around the release of her loss, it suggests that while Drake was publicly celebrating, there might have been a very different vibe behind closed doors. Some fans argue these messages, if real, prove Drake never genuinely cared about the music alone. Instead, he cared about the narrative, controlling how rap audiences perceive him and how they perceive his competition, especially Kendrick. By weaving manipulative storylines, leaning on media allies, and conjuring illusions that Kendrick's success was built on shady deals, Drake could maintain the upper hand. Yet the LOL scenario highlights a side of him that doesn't align with the poetic, introspective brand he spent years crafting. It's one thing to have strategic alliances in the industry, that's par for the course in show business. But it's another to push fake narratives and laugh off disturbing events, while also accusing your rival of doing precisely the same. The hypocrisy has left many fans feeling betrayed. People in Drake's camp are, of course, downplaying the significance of the DMs. A few supporters claim the screenshots are manipulated or taken out of context. Others say they came from an old device of Drake's that was stolen. If so, they might insist the texts are incomplete. Some even argue it's a conspiracy by Kendrick stans who want to see Drake crash and burn. But even these counter-arguments don't fully quell the uproar because nothing about the tone or content of the messages feels like a typical deepfake. The language is distinctive, reminiscent of Drake's usual patterns, and the references align suspiciously well with real-life events. All it takes is a single verified source to confirm authenticity, and the rapper's brand could be devastated in a way it's never been before. From an industry standpoint, this scandal could have explosive repercussions. For years, Drake has been one of the most powerful forces in music. Labels, festivals, streaming platforms, you name it, have often bowed to the star's demands, in part because he's a guaranteed moneymaker. But if this avalanche of negative press continues, and if more and more allegations begin to look legit, there's a real chance that the industry might start distancing itself. Already, some inside sources claim that certain executives are uneasy about the possibility of having known about these manipulative tactics, but choosing to stay silent. If the wave of leaks gets worse, these executives might pivot to protecting themselves, possibly painting Drake as a rogue actor. In other words, if backing him becomes a liability, you can bet they'll jump ship. And in an era where public opinion can flip in an instant, nobody wants to be associated with a star who's possibly guilty of orchestrating smear campaigns and laughing off morally questionable encounters. There's also the question of how fans will react. For a long time, Drake built his identity on relatability. He gave voice to heartbreak, personal reflection, and the sting of betrayal in ways that resonated with millions. Yet, if the average listener starts suspecting the man behind the curtain is far from the sympathetic persona in the songs, that bond can shatter. Fans don't mind a bit of strategic rivalry in hip-hop. Beefs are practically part of the culture. But discovering that an artist might be maliciously controlling narratives and mocking unsettling incidents in private is a heavier pill to swallow. It changes the dynamic from a playful competition to something far more contrived and manipulative. And for someone who's prided himself on authenticity, the blowback can be severe. The next time Drake drops a tearful R&B-laced track, listeners might wonder if it's just another performance. Even though all of this revolves around leaked DMs, the real conversation is about trust, authenticity, and ethics in the music industry. Kendrick Lamar, for his part, has often been portrayed as the more raw, lyrically incisive figure, while Drake was seen as the polished hitmaker. But if these documents are accurate, Kendrick might be validated in every subtle critique he's ever leveled at Drake. The lines on certain diss tracks that hinted at Drake's manipulative side could now seem far more literal than fans initially believed. Kendrick's references to fake illusions and constructed realities in his own lyrics take on a new dimension when read alongside these alleged transcripts. The more details come out, the more it appears that Kendrick was calling out something he knew was happening behind the curtain, something the rest of us only glimpsed through cryptic verses and rumor mills. Of course, it's vital to remember that we've seen major stars survive monumental scandals before. Public memory can be short, and loyalty runs deep in fan bases. If Drake issues a heartfelt explanation, or if he drops a project so undeniable it commands universal acclaim, some fans may forgive or forget. He's navigated controversies in the past, like ghostwriting accusations and rumors about feuds with other rappers, and he always seemed to bounce back. The question is whether this time it cuts deeper, because this isn't a typical music-related scandal. It's not about a questionable line in a freestyle or an off-color joke. It's about systematic efforts to manipulate an entire narrative and possibly dismissing an unsettling scenario with a flippant LOL. That's a layer of moral complexity that simple PR statements might not fix. The question that looms over everything is, will Drake come forward to address this head-on? Or will he try to ride out the storm, hoping it fades away? Silence can be damning, especially if more leaks appear. On the other hand, a misstep in any official response could make the scandal grow even larger. Some claim they've found references in older interviews hinting that Drake may have had involvement in hush-hush deals to keep certain stories out of the limelight. Others suspect the label might be prepping a campaign that spins these DMs as out of context, or jokes among friends. But those who have read them believe the tone is too calculated to shrug off as mere banter. It's not just the words, it's the venom behind them. There's a bigger context here too. Hip-hop has always thrived on authenticity and raw expression. Fans accept bravado and ego because they know it's part of the culture. But once you start meddling with backroom deals, paying off certain outlets, or ridiculing serious matters, you risk crossing a line that even brand loyalty can't excuse. This entire fiasco shows that the tension between Drake and Kendrick Lamar might not be the usual rap beef. The narrative is now overshadowed by revelations of cunning alliances and questionable ethics. The days of fans innocently debating which diss track had the better bars could be replaced by bigger debates about moral standing and personal integrity. Yet, in a strange twist, these leaks have reignited interest in the earlier songs where Drake and Kendrick took shots at each other. People are dissecting lyrics line by line, searching for hidden clues that might confirm whether Drake had been secretly plotting this entire time. And every time a suspicious line surfaces, whether from Not Like Us, or a guest verse, or an unreleased snippet, fans can't help but wonder, was Drake layering coded jabs at Kendrick, orchestrating a facade the entire industry accepted as fact? Conversely, was Kendrick quietly trying to alert us to the truth that's only coming out now? Where do we go from here? The next few weeks could see more alleged evidence drop. After all, if one person had access to these leaked DMS, they might have more. If Drake's critics get hold of additional messages or recordings, the scandal could escalate to a point of no return. Legal teams might get involved, sending cease and desist letters. Media personalities who once worked with Drake could scramble to protect themselves, perhaps by cooperating with investigators or releasing their own set of DMs to show they weren't complicit. Everything depends on who stands to gain the most by letting more skeletons out of Drake's closet. Drake's future might hinge on whether the casual fan believes the story is real. If enough people are convinced that he truly acted this way behind the scenes, it could overshadow every chart record he's broken, every platinum plaque on his wall. People might remember him less as the emotive rapper who wrote confessional songs and more as the star who tried to manipulate an entire culture to kneecap his rival. That's the kind of shift that can tarnish a legacy, especially in a digital age where receipts never truly vanish. The conclusion remains uncertain, but there's a distinct possibility that we're witnessing the unraveling of one of hip-hop's biggest names. Whether he survives this storm or crumbles beneath the weight of the allegations will come down to how fans, the industry, and Drake himself choose to handle the fallout. If the leaked DMs reveal anything, it's that the man behind the chart-topping singles may be more complex and more controversial than the squeaky clean persona he projects. For now, all we can do is wait and see whether Drake will confront the swirling rumors, or whether more revelations will come to light, pushing him further into a corner he can't easily escape. The moment of truth could arrive any day now, and no one knows just how devastating it might be. In the end, the big question for everyone watching is this: how much does character matter in music? And at what point does an artist's private behavior become unforgivable, no matter how many hits they have? Some fans will stand by Drake regardless, defending him against all critics, insisting these are lies or misunderstandings. Others might feel the magic fade, questioning every lyric and every heartfelt line they once believed. Yet, there's no denying the magnitude of this upheaval. If Drake was truly behind these manipulative tactics and bizarre private moments, it might not just change how we see him, it could spark a shift in how we view the entire ecosystem that propped him up. Ultimately, as more details surface, the truth might challenge everything we think we know about loyalty, authenticity, and success in hip-hop. And sometimes, the biggest shocks are the ones we never see coming, until the leaks start pouring in and expose it all.